have such sights to show you. We're Poppin the Scary Horror Podcast here. I'm your host, Coale, and with me as always, I have my good friend and co-host, Aaron.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I know. Hi, how are you? Just pulling that good old SpongeBob intro there, Spanish Bell. I think the last time we did that was Night of the Living Dead, I want to say there. But yeah. So, obviously, last time I had a really good time celebrating our 3-year anniversary on the podcast.
Woo!
And for those that didn't listen to the episode previous, Greg Mortis's recommendation for us was to watch one of his favorite films of all time, Motel Hell. So, So, I'm going to be honest, I only know a little bit about it, and it's honestly just because I've listened to so much Land of the Creeps where I wasn't joking. He brings it up a lot there, just talking about Motel Hell, as he usually says and everything.
Well,
so,
hell yeah.
And it's just one of those things that I've heard, and I'm like, yeah, I'll get around to watching it, and never did. Just add that to my forever backlog and everything there.
The ever-expanding list.
I remember seeing this one TikTok that was so appropriate where it's like, man, I have all these movies to choose from. Hey, did you hear about this movie? No, I didn't. Let's watch that one.
Right.
Yeah, and so
Perfect.
that's what ends up happening a lot. So I am glad to now finally have a grounded, concrete reason to finally view this film and everything. All I know is that it's from 1980 and everything. And yeah, that's about it there.
Okay.
Now, I know that he told us that this is kind of like a dark comedy sort of film and everything else like that. So I'm wondering if it's going to be in the vein of like Evil Dead sort of vibes there or something like that. I don't know. I mean, do you have any expectations going into this film?
I don't know anything about it, so my imagination is just filling in the blanks. I don't know. I'm thinking like maybe House of a Thousand Corpses style comedy, like just kind
I
of
could
like
see that.
bizarre, with a motel. I assume it is a motel setting. So there's got to be some goofy, spooky stuff going on.
Yeah, I would hope so and everything, but yeah, hopefully it ends up being a real goofy, grand old time, I guess, but it's so sad, I didn't even bring up the fact that there is the motel.
Right.
And
There's hell, there's motel, it rhymes, I don't know, I'm just hoping I don't have to give this one a bad review on Yelp.
Yeah, you log into your Yelp review just to review
This
a movie
motel.
Just, you always gotta love those pretentious people that phrase it like a novel and everything else. So yeah, hopefully we won't have to leave a bad review on Yelp, but if it's called Motel Hell, I think it's already gotten some pretty bad reviews. At least for the motel itself. Movie wise, I hope it's great. So yeah, only way to find out is for us to check into Motel Hell. So be back later, y'all.
Woo!
Takes all kinds of critters
to make Farmer Vincent fritters.
And we are back from watching Motel Hell.
Ding ding, checking in.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm checking out. Ding ding. Because that place was hell.
Boy, when you check in, it's hard to check out.
Oh, yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah, wow. Whenever Greg described it as a dark comedy, yeah.
It was
right
hilarious.
on the money. Yes. It was like the best way I can describe the whole film is if they took Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but it's a Looney Tunes short stretched out to an hour and a half about. Like, everything felt like a Looney Tunes style gag. And with the stereotype characters, like, over the top.
Yeah, it's like they just turned the camp up to 11. Yeah, it was that's where all the comedy was. It was just God. There were some funny lines in there that I don't know that they were meant to be that funny. But
Yeah, it was wild to say the least there. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of cutting up to do with this episode here. So
slicing the knife.
yes, you know it. So basically, the premise of Motel Hell focuses on a couple that's riding on their motorcycle when an accident occurs and they end up crashing. And the boyfriend does not make it, it seems. And then we see one of the locals comes up to drive and see that the gal on the motorcycle is still alive. And so he decides to take her in and take care of her so that way she helps recovers and everything. Meanwhile, we get to see how Farmer Vincent runs his Hotel Hell Low.
Yeah.
And sells some of his famous smoked meats.
Yeah, hotel/smoked meat storefront.
Yeah, and it's up to Terry just to kind of piece together exactly what all Farmer Vincent's about with his job and profession.
Yeah, what's going on?
So, yeah, I mean, I would say the story is weird.
A lot of this movie.
Well, like, it's weird, like, because, you know, there's a premise like, oh, man, that's wacky. But, like, the pacing of the story is so bizarre. It almost had the pacing of The Room, where they would focus on certain aspects, or they're like, you know, let's play some football, huh?
Yeah,
you know,
it's just bad pacing.
Yes. I didn't want to say it was bad, but yes. But
I mean, yeah. No, I get what you're saying though, because even though I mean, like, it's just like a poor like a poorly made movie, you know, like The Room, but just like The Room, it keeps you enthralled the entire time because of just how bizarre everything is.
It's so true, because, like, you know, we've seen setups like this, because, like I said, I could tell there's a lot of inspiration, bits of inspiration from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because this film came out in 1980, which is like 6 years after Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So the idea of somebody, you know, selling smoked meats that you know, may or may not be 100% animal, you know what I'm saying?
Some dubiously made meats.
Yes, exactly. But it's weird, because I feel like I've seen these kind of films before, and I'm so used to the story beats of, like, okay, they get settled in, they start learning about the people, they start to notice little weird things, kind of like similar to, like, 10 Cloverfield Lane and everything, where just, like, slowly the madness is amped up and everything. But in all honesty, with how the pacing of the story and the characters are, I was like, I don't even know where this is going at this point here. Like, because it's just so bizarre with the pacing that I just genuinely was sitting there like, I don't know what's going to happen next. I genuinely had no idea. Which I don't know. On the one hand, because the pacing is bad, you would think like, oh, the movie's terrible. No. But even though, like, the pacing just made it be like, I guess we're doing this now, I guess we're doing that now, like, it's just so all over the place. It almost circles back to being refreshing that I'm like, I have no idea what this film's gonna do next.
Because the movie does keep going along, it's just you don't really know where it's taking you. Yeah, and it's not in like setting up a mystery sense, it's just like in a meandering sense through this universe that they created, where Farmer Vincent is, you know, the god of meat within a 100-mile radius.
God of meat.
He's just, you know, just all the suspicious activity, and it's like a weird, like, Stockholm syndrome story with this girl that he's helping, you know, recover after her motorcycle accident, and all of the ways that relationship develops. And then you have your, you know, not just Farmer Vincent and this girl, but you also have the kid brother sheriff character who's madly in love with this rescued girl. And it's just, the plot lines are just, yeah. Like, you can kind of see where it's all going. It's like you could see what's cooking, but it's like, who let him cook? Who let him cook?
Yeah, that honestly is pretty dadgum on the spot there, to say the least, because it's just so bizarre. The plot, pacing, and the characters. I can't talk too much about the plot because, again, it loses itself a lot in the madness there, which isn't terrible, but at the same point is very unexpected, to say the very least, and everything. Yeah. So let's talk about some of the characters here. One of the characters that you meet, that we've mentioned, is Farmer Vincent, played by Rory Calhoun, and I will very much go on a limb and say that this is, on a technical speaking, the best actor. He's
a charming older gentleman.
Yes, absolutely. Like, you could see he's very well trained and everything there. Just very much with how he acts and just how, like, he's just like, just a humble guy that, sells meat in 100-mile radius and everything, and just runs a little motel. Just a very easygoing guy. And he's very good. Every time he delivered lines a lot of the time, especially with how crazy this film is, I was like, yeah, he's delivering this line to the absolute best of his capability. So I think, like, on a technical speaking term, I found him to be the best actor in the film entirely there. Not that the others were bad, yeah,
somewhere.
Yeah, but it's like the pacing of the plot.
Right.
It's bad, but it's not bad. It's bad.
That's the thing with dark comedy, is that, sometimes it's bad, but the bad is good, because that's kind of what you're here for,
But, yeah, I found him to be, like, obviously just the most interesting character, and I think even the filmmakers just kind of knew, like, okay, if we're going to invest the most, like, creating an interesting character, it needs to be this guy, because he's basically looking to be the most questionable ethically and everything. So they just kind of put him up there. But again, he has that, sort of just humble swagger charm going on and everything. So I would say Farmer Vincent, definitely the best actor there, and we could talk more about a lot of the stuff he does later on there. There's also his younger brother and everything, Bruce, played by Paul Link, who is oh my gosh. It's one of those things. He's like the dopey sheriff.
Yes.
Very much the dopey sheriff, just like, well, what's going on here?
He's very much that stereotype. He's kind of like Dewey.
I was going to say Dewey, but it's just like almost... But at least Dewey has some character, but it does very much Dewey-esque.
Right.
Which is funny, because
it's what Dewey's making fun of, I think. Like, that character of Dewey is supposed to be the dopey sheriff that is always in these horror movies.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. That's so funny you brought him up.
And this guy is just another dopey sheriff at a low-budget horror movie.
But it's just... some of the line deliveries the actors have and everything is just...
Oh, it was amazing. He has one of my favorite lines in the beginning of the movie. Whenever, Terry is that the rescued girl?
Yes.
She's like confused as to what happened to her boyfriend, and I'll spare you the details of the explanation. But the sheriff just says, in this county, that's just kind of okay. And Terry's just like, well, all right. I guess the sheriff would know.
Yeah, just know the lie. Yeah, oh my gosh. There's just so many lines, and the expression he would have, it's on terms. I have not seen the movie The Happening, the M. Night Shyamalan movie with oh my gosh, Marky Mark. I can't think of him.
Mark Wahlberg?
Yeah, Mark Wahlberg. I can only think of his rapper name, not the actual name. But have you seen the clip where he goes like, what? No.
No. Insert clip.
I hear you whispering. Planning on stealing something?
No, ma'am, we're not.
Plan on murdering me in my sleep?
What? No.
What? Yeah.
No.
Just that open white expression. It's like it's like you could see the actor's gears turning like, okay, now I need to act with my face and act with the voice, but he doesn't make it natural. So, but again, it's like that weird valley where it's like, yeah, this is bad, but because of the way they're performing it, it usurps it. Again, it's just sort of like so bad it's good.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of what we're dealing with this film, even though if I'm being completely honest, I don't think this film, even on a critical standpoint, is bad.
I don't
per
think
se.
so either. Yeah, it does things that are interesting and inventive and artistic, and all of those things are what I give it critical points for. It also, yeah, some of the dialogue is just bad, though. I mean, like, there are definitely elements of this film that are just like just bad, but
Yeah, so
but a lot of it just makes it charming and funny. But
yeah, and obviously, I don't think you'd probably disagree with this too much, but the next best actor or actress, should I say, or actor, I don't know, just keep it platonic just across the room there, is the character Ida Smith, played by Nancy Parsons.
she's great, actually.
She made me very uncomfortable with like how unhinged she was and everything. And not only that, but just like, even the way she prepared her food with, like, a grotesque amount of, like, whipped cream and different stuff. Like, that sort of stuff unnerved me, and the smile, and just, she was always off. Always off, and I feel like that's good, because, again, you know, this also has a lot of horror aspects to it and everything else. But she made me, like, feel very uncomfortable, where I was just like, at least with, like, former Vincent there, he has a bit of, like, you know, puts you at ease, relax, talking and everything. There's kind of just something off about her, but again, it's not even, like, the fact of, like, oh, she's, like, man. Just, like, the overly friendly to the point where it's, like, uncomfortable and everything, but she's also odd. It just was that perfect valley of just, like, yeah, I'm just getting uncomfortable. So she did a very good job with that. So major kudos to her and everything, since, yeah, like I said, with the pacing of the film and everything, there's times she's like, oh, I'm here, and then just dives back into the background and everything. So I give her major points there. And then, of course, we could talk about the woman that is saved, Terry, played by Nina Axelrod.
Yeah.
Oh.
She plays the role of doe-eyed blonde really well, in the sense that she is kind of just spaced out and like, oh
my gosh.
Which I wouldn't say her performance was, you know, Oscar worthy.
No, it just was like, I don't know what's going on, you know?
Oh.
Yeah, just doing, yes, I believe, like, Starry-Eyed Doe, like you described, is, like, perfect, but, like, the acting was so terrible.
Just sort of dumb.
It was one of those things as well. She could be put to ease immediately.
She's amazing. Like, as far as like a realistic character as written, she's the least. Yeah, she's like just willing to go with anything that happens. I don't know. Maybe they shot her up with some special drugs after the car crash or something. Maybe it rattled her brain and she's a different person. But
yeah,
the decision she's made, like, oh well, that's normal, I guess. Even the entire premise that she's just like gotten a motorcycle accident and now she's just living on this farm, like for what it seems like months. I don't know. Like,
it's
for
a long time.
Just like, well, I crashed my motorcycle. Guess I live here now. Even that alone to just be cool with is bizarre as a character. But.
Well, not only that, but it just be instances like, oh my god, my boyfriend's dead. And it's like, well, it's a miracle you're alive. You're right.
You're
thanks.
so right. Yeah. I'll never mention him again.
Like, it was just ghosting right through the acceptance of death.
Yeah, like whoever's written this just like, they were just writing their ideal woman. Just like, I'll explain anything to her and she'll agree. This is what they talk about. This is the male gaze and kind of Women just kind of go along with whatever the other people say. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, those are the main guys. That's for sure, and everything there. I also pointed out, but later in the film, there's like a band crew that ends up being stopped by Farmer Vincent and everything, and the drummer is John Ratzenberg, who was in Cheers, and also does like all the voices for Pixar, like Ham or the Underminer from Incredibles. He hardly talks in the film. So you never hear, "Hey, I'm John Ratzenberger."
I was waiting to hear his voice, but yeah, you don't. I can't even remember.
And even the chance that you do, you can't hear nothing.
Yeah, true. I couldn't remember the name of their band, but they're in a communist band. I
Yes,
guess.
it was called Ivan and the Terribles.
That's right. Yeah. Had like a hammer sickle on the side of the band.
I love I'm guessing the lead singer, because the facial hair just clearly looked glued on.
Right.
It was.
I couldn't tell if that was supposed to like look fake because that's like a fake beard for their act, like as a band.
Oh my god!
Or if it was just bad makeup, like bad. I couldn't tell which one it was.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, aside from that, there's lots of other quirky characters we'll definitely talk about as we mention more aspects about the film, because wow. Yeah.
There are some funny random side characters that are introduced that are just wacky, and you can tell they're trying their hardest to be wacky.
Yeah, I mean, we could try to do our best.
No, we don't need to go through them.
You're like, no.
I'm sure they'll come up. It's like the random sex tourist couple that shows up for those people. All the televangelist people.
Oh my god!
All these random side characters are just they're just over the top. But
they just and they're like ridiculously over the top. And I feel like, in all honesty, it's kind of incredible. Like I said, it just felt like, again, like a cartoon character walking in. Yeah. And oh my gosh.
But so many elements of this movie do have that feeling you get from cartoons where they can just kind of get away with whatever. You know what I mean?
Yes. Like you just accept this.
Right. Like the little twisty premise, I guess, that the secret behind this farm itself is just so alien. It does feel like you're watching, like a cartoon or something.
It really does, because if I'm being completely honest, that's kind of one of the things I will give credit for this film about. Like I said, these films are kind of hard to talk about without spoiling everything, but just to give an idea, they have their method of smoking and preparing the meat and everything, and it's actually kind of interesting, because it's not... I thought it would just be one of those, the grand reveal, here's the secret, but you actually see the entire process bits by bits, here's what they do at first, and it's like we need that Food Network guy with how it's made or whatever, and it's like, take a look at all these happy little crackers going down the belt. I'm just expecting that level of and here, Farmer Vincent is collecting up the animals for his meats. And it's weird, because they spent a lot of time. You could tell, how does he prepare his meats and everything. And they show it bit by bit. You see the whole process to basically the complete product.
I wonder if that was the spark to write this movie, is just someone said, you don't want to see how the sausage is made. And they're like, oh, that sounds like a spooky premise. How is the sausage made?
But yeah, that was one of the interesting things, because I thought it would just be surprise, here's the meat, but no, there was zero questions. I know the whole meat packing process and everything, just how it's done or whatever.
Which is why this movie, I think, feels so weirdly meandering, and the way that they put the story together, because there is a lot of lore building, which is important in all genre. I mean, you think about world building in the sense of Saw or something, and they spend a lot of time on the methodology, why this is happening, and so it makes sense in a horror movie. It just, in this one, it was just so bizarre that, we spent a lot of time on, like, agriculture.
Yes, very, very much so. It's so funny. And like I said, the craziest thing, like I said, we've mentioned this before, like, all of the tangents, like, that they divert to and everything else, because, like, literally you'll be going through the story and everything, and then all of a sudden the sheriff, Luke, or I guess deputy, whatever he is, decides to take Terry out in the middle of the lake with like a boat, and it's like a little dinky lake.
It's a tiny, like, retention pond on the farm, like.
And it felt more like it was supposed to be like a weird comedy than it was an actual like dark comedy, because he's just like, oh yeah, you want go check out the movies tonight there?
The drive-in movie?
Yeah, sure. Doing that, and like how they try to progress the plot along, it's just bizarre. Like, they don't make it straight, like, okay, they go here, and no. It always has to be, like, beyond your expectations. Like, they wanted you to not be able to guess what was going to happen next, or how they were going to do certain activities and everything.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like the general sense of the movie you can kind of get pretty quick, but then like the beats in between is just like, well, I did not expect we're going to go down that route, but
yeah, but yeah, I think it's, man, this film is definitely hard to talk about, because like I honestly don't want to spoil a lot of the golden moments there are in this film, because there's a whole trove of moments that will forever stick with me with this film experience, with how wacky it is. Like I said, just pure Looney Tunes, Tex Avery, you name it, manifested into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, as it were. One of the things I thought was weird is like how orchestral the music was, because it feels low budget a bit, but then it would just come up with these like grand scores a lot of the time there, and I'm like, how did you find this orchestra like to compose this? It's just like, all right, this film is definitely going to be like almost grindhouse feel or whatever, just low budget, but then we bring in this giant epic orchestra or whatever. So that was like one of the things that always threw me through the loop, and I'm just like, okay, dadgum, the score's dadgum refined there. So one of the things I will say that I wish this film would have done more is, even though like you have Ida, who definitely made me feel like a little anxious, nervous, uncomfortable and everything, the film isn't really scary. It's really not. And even the parts that I felt like I should be like, ugh, I feel like they were too afraid to show it, like just for getting like an X rating potentially. But those are minor nitpicks there. I feel like it's just a balancing act in everything. It's kind of like, how Evil Dead series was. First one being more leaning into horror than it did comedy. The second one balanced both pretty equally. And the third one's more just comedy than it is horror and everything. So I feel like it's just a balancing act, and they just kind of chose, no, we're just going to double down on the comedy and everything, because I feel like the film is intentionally and unintentionally hysterical.
Yes, I do think they were trying to be funny in several of these parts, but then I also think some of the humor just comes from, the low budget, terrible effects nature. But which some of the effects were all right, but then there's definitely some that's like, that's just like a silicone hand. Like
yes, very much so. And sometimes he would make decisions that I'm just like, okay, like the way that the film concludes is like amazing and terrible at the same time, and it's not even like the terrible that's good, it's just bad.
Oh, true.
But
amazing and terrible is how I would describe this whole movie, honestly. I do think this movie is amazing in a like whatever's below B movie kind of way.
Yes, I would agree. So it's like a weird place I find this film or whatever, because even the parts that they just choose to meander, again, it just somehow works out in its favor.
Yeah.
It's
because it's keeping things interesting. Spices it up constantly.
yeah. So this film is. This film is definitely wacky. There hasn't been too many films to where after I watch it, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
all right. There's definitely been films that have underwhelmed us, or you're just like, perfection.
Yeah.
This is a masterpiece or something. This is just one of those things. I'm like, I don't know what that was, but that sure was fun as hell.
It was fun. Yeah, it's a fun romp. Yeah, I guess this is just kind of what happens in my mind whenever, like, you have a fun, good idea, but you don't have a budget. Or a lot of experience as a filmmaker, maybe, because a lot of the things were just, like, kind of messy. I think is what we're just seeing. It's just, it wasn't a cleaned up, buttoned up kind of movie, but also, I don't think it would be as fun that way. So, you know, it's a mixed bag.
Yeah. I don't know, dude. Is there anything else we could talk about with before spoilers or anything?
I don't think so. I'm really tempted to just share that. I don't know. This is going to come out of nowhere, but everything in this movie does. So I'm just going to say this, and if you've never seen it, then you won't get it. Like, just watch it. This isn't going to spoil anything, but it does have one of the most interesting takes on zombies I've seen in a long time.
Yes. Yeah. I really want to talk more about that. I
can't talk about the details.
I think even mentioning that it, like, for people that don't know the movie and they hear zombies, like, what kind of film is this?
Right, because it's not. Yeah, that when I say it's the most interesting take, it is. Yeah, you'll just have to join us in spoilers after you.
Yes, for sure. Which I believe.
To know what I'm talking about.
I believe it's streaming for free on Tubi. So definitely know that. I guess since we can't really talk about the wonderful bits this movie has, Aaron, please give your rating for Motel Hell.
Yeah, awesome. Also, awful. Awesome and awful. I think mostly in a good way. 70% of the awful is good to me. There is like that 30% that is like, that was just bad. But yeah, I do think this is Room-esque in the comedy sphere of like, bad, so bad is good, but also there's like, you just want to know what happens next constantly. So because it's like magnetic and entertaining, it's up there as far as score for me, but it definitely loses some points just by being like, I feel like I can only carry a movie so far by like how funny it being bad is. You know what I mean? So,
yes.
I think this one's probably about this is hard for me. This is probably about a 7. I'm going to give it a 7. It's a little high. I know that sounds high, but I'm rating it within the realm of what it is, which is a dark comedy. So like, as far as dark comedies go, that's like a 7 for me. Yeah, it is funny. I think it's pretty aware of how bad it is, and it doesn't take itself seriously at all, almost, which I think is a benefit to what it was going for. So yeah, I'll give it like I was thinking like a 6, but I mean, fuck it, I'll give it a 7. Like, I can see why this could be like somebody's favorite film. You know, like,
yes.
It's got a lot going for it, and I feel like I would watch it again and think it was hilarious again. So
yeah, well, it's so funny because that is exactly where I'm at. Because like, if I'm thinking about it, like I said, you even mentioned it, kind of like House of a Thousand Corpses feel and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that film, I remember rating on the podcast, rating it a 6.5. But I feel like it's just sort of, it's kind of in that same realm for me, kind of film wise and everything, because it does just where House of a Thousand Corpses, I love the artistic stuff, like with Captain Spaulding, sort of like Museum of Monsters and Madmen. Like, I love that part, and then even though it doesn't make sense at the end of the film with like the skulls everywhere, but I love those artistic moments. But then I just get like bored with like the other stuff, like the main group and everything else. So that's what weighs it down, because I rated that at 6.5, and while like I feel like I love that movie more than what I rated and everything, this film is kind of like similar, except that I critically rated higher, but maybe not love it as much. So that's where I'm like, okay, if House of a Thousand Corpses is at 6.5 there, where does Motel Hell range? Because it's like, I almost want to lean it to a 7, then I'm like, 6, 7, 6. So and even at 6.5, I'm just like, oh, I feel like 6.5. I either need to move it down or up. I don't know. It's around there or whatever. Like, okay. If I'm being honest, trying to think on a good, oh man, see, like I'm struggling like you are, like where I'm just like, doing like rating it back and forth. You know what? I don't know. I'll say it's a 6. It could be a 7. It could even be a 6.5. It's just, it's in that ballpark. It's housed between 6 and 7, but doesn't live in the middle. So I don't know. I'm just gonna leave it there. In all honesty, it's like I even mentioned with the previous episode. I even I forgot to add some bits to the last episode, so I re-recorded myself saying like, okay, looking back at it, is it the worst one I've ever seen? No, in fact, I probably would rate it a 2. You've heard me in other episodes be like, think about American Psycho, it should have gone up, or this film should have gone down. So that's where it's going to be housed for now. I'm just going to plant that right there. If I was, again, I feel like just for unique ways this film diverted, I give it a 7 there. But if I'm just being like real harsh, it's a 6 there. So I don't know. I could keep meandering between that or whatever, but I'm just going to leave it there for audience interpretation. Yeah. Just leave it edgy, doing that. So, Aaron has a 7. I have 6, 6.5, 7, 6.5, 6, whatever.
Feeling at home.
Yes, whatever. You decide, audience, what Coale rates Motel Hell and everything. Oh, fuck it, I'll give it a 7. Fine.
7!
Yeah, 7. Woo! I don't know. Sure. If I was held at gunpoint, that's what I say. Anyways, now we can move on to spoilers there. So if you don't want to be spoiled, go. But if you just have to hear about all the juicy bits, stick around because Aaron's going to lay it on us.
The bits are juicy. That's for sure. God, the aspect I'm dying to talk about is they get married, but they don't.
That, like,
the marriage arc.
I can't. Oh my gosh! So that was wild to me because like, what is that condition syndrome called? That
Stockholm syndrome. Yeah, where you fall in love with your captor. Is that what you're talking about?
I was thinking about that, or the one whenever like hospital patients would fall in love with the nurses, or sort of that thing.
We fall in love with your caretaker.
Yes.
I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the term, but
so I was thinking of that as well because like at first it just she warms up to Vincent and Ida like so well, and like it's just ridiculous. Like literally she like is immediately like, it's not even like a situation like it is with 10 Cloverfield Lane where it's like, they're a little family, but they don't feel like a family. They just feel like people stuck together. No, she was just immediately like, oh my gosh, you guys are great.
Right.
Like having like a picnic in the cemetery or whatever.
It's like she's like a blank slate. You know what I mean? Like she had nothing coming in besides like, oh, well, I guess I'm a farmer girl now. Like it's like we don't know anything about her before the motorcycle accident or who her boyfriend was, or she's like anything about her. She's just like, well, I love it here. Yeah, that was so good. But like the marriage aspect came out of the blue because like at first it's like doing like little kisses on the cheek there, but I figured it's like, oh, she's just a sweet girl trying to be nice or whatever, do stuff like that. And then it just happens again and again, and then oh my gosh, like there was moments where I'm like, man, they're really like amping up the romantic orchestral music. That's why I was like losing my mind, because it's like this film almost like tries to lean into like a romance or whatever, whether it's like her hanging out with like the deputy or like her being like, Farmer Vincent, you're so great. It's like, oh well, maybe I'll teach you the secrets of meatpacking and everything. And it's like a romantic thing on his like beautifully yellow tractor. And she gives him a kiss while he trails off. But, oh my gosh, trying to get to the marriage. The marriage proposal was so out of left field, but everything's out of left field because like, let's talk about
what scene happened before that
Yeah.
and before that. So basically, she decides to sneak into the little butcher's room or
Oh, the
whatever.
meat room,
And then
yeah.
Ida's like, what are you doing here? She's like, nothing. The door was open and Farmer Vincent said he'd teach me the secret. She's like, teach you the secrets, huh? How about we go tubing?
Yeah, and he's like, a good day for tubing.
Yeah, like tubing. And again, like, I love that she's trying to distract them while looking at the vat of, like, blood and seeing, like, human parts ripping up.
Yeah, she keeps,
But-
like, hitting it
but,
so
like-
that they drop back down.
Here's my stupid dumbass thought. Whenever she's, like, tubing, I thought it was, like, sausage links or whatever
right, that's
tubing.
what I thought, too, yeah.
No! The film literally cuts to the same pond that they were at earlier with the boat.
The
running-
25-foot wide pond.
Yeah. And they run out with, like, little tubes and jump in, and she's like, you don't even have to swim!
Yeah, and she's like, I'm not very good swimmer. Also, I'm only in a white t-shirt and nothing else. For reasons unknown.
Surely it isn't for the male audience,
Surely this isn't a deliberate decision from the director for people to see my breasts. Anyway.
Which happens multiple times, but that's beside the point. But, like, they're hanging out there in the pond, and then all of a sudden, Ida's like, okay, I got this. Pulls out a box cutter, cuts her tube. She's like, I can't swim.
I thought she was going to cut
Yes.
Tracy's tube, but Ida cuts her own tube and is like, I'm drowning, and then goes and pushes Tracy off of hers.
Yeah, and then just, like, push it off, and then trying to drown her. And then Farmer Vincent, I guess, happens to be there to save the day. And she's in the bed or whatever, completely nude, covered up. But then, like, all of a sudden, she's, like, kissing his hand and everything. And then is trying to have him feel her breast or whatever. He's like, oh, what are you doing?
Yeah.
She's just like, I want you to kiss me. He's like, well, all right. And then kisses her on the forehead. And she's like, no, not like that. And he's just
She's
like,
take me.
and he's just like, we gotta get married first.
She's like, well, I can't. Not until we're married. And I love that she interpreted that as like, wow, so you're proposing then? And then he's like, well, I guess so. And fucking goes to the pastor and just sets up a marriage for Sunday. And then that arc goes nowhere.
Oh my gosh. It was
Where was the wedding scene?
it just so wild. Like, that's the whole film is just moments
Right.
like that, but it just keeps rolling. It's like
It's never mentioned again. Nothing about the wedding.
almost feels like a WWE style story or whatever.
Yeah.
Just very overly extenuated
right.
there. And even the pastor is so wild, which
like everything's a bit. Like everybody's like that's the style of acting. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you're doing a bit, and he's like, "All right, I'm a televangelist in the South. Okay, glory." You know. And it's,
yeah, which by the way, the guy who played the Reverend Billy,
Yeah.
his name is Wolfman Jack, and
Yeah,
here's
I
his
saw-
photo there.
I saw
But he's
that in
just
the
like,
credits.
it's great that you're all getting married.
Glory, glory. The only other time you really see this dude is when he confiscates a nudie magazine from the dopey deputy, and he's like, I gotta take that and properly dispose of it. And then he's like, oh, glory.
Yeah, like-
looking at the titties.
I know it was so funny because you have the deputy looking at. Like, it's like literally acting 101, like, oh, pretend you're looking at a naughty magazine.
Yeah.
He's like,
Aruga.
yeah, Aruga, yes. And then he's like, give me that magazine. I must dispose of it properly. And he's looking at the pages, opens up, because, reverence. He's like, glory be to God. Like, doing that. But then, you think, like, the bit's dead. You're like, okay, whatever. But anyways, that's whenever, like, the reverend is telling Luke, that Farmer Vincent's getting married to that girl. I just want to just be Reverend Billy, apparently, this episode. And he's just like, what? Marrying that old man?
He must be forcing her or whatever.
Something's afoot.
So he has to run
He's
over
like,
to the farm, find out what's happening, bust down the door when she's in the bath, and she doesn't say anything while he's busting down the door. And then he busts down. She's like, "What are you doing here? My breasted boobies are popping right out of this tub." She doesn't say that last line.
Oh my gosh, you forgot the best part. Him crashing into Motel Hell. I was reading the same goddamn magazine.
Oh,
So
yeah,
apparently that's like the issue going on.
That's a good bit.
That just made me laugh. He's like, looking at this magazine, really?
And he's like, you're filthy.
Yeah. But yeah, she was like, because there's moments of like, okay, they're not going to show the breast, but then it just glory be revealed,
Boobies.
Nipples, areola, the whole shebang.
Oh, the whole kit and caboodle.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, she's like, I'm getting married to Farmer Vincent. He's like, you can't marry that old prune. His pecker don't even work.
He's got syphilis brain. He's crazy.
It's just so wacky.
Yeah, and this is the deputy that, like, they tried to do, like, a weird, I don't even want to call it a love triangle, because, like, because before then, he was, like, trying to get with her in the cop car, and, of course, he did the scene where he breaks up everybody that's, like, fucking in their cars in this random...
That was so wild.
And then he's like, oh, we're actually going to watch the drive-in, because we're going to watch it through our binoculars on this hill, and she's like, that's an amazing idea. I love everything. I'm so in love with every idea that a man tells me. Until he's like, all right. And then he tries to, like, put the old arm around her and, feel her up. And she's like, no. And then he's like, come on. And then she's like, no, really, no, get the fuck off me. And he's like, and she's just like... uncomfortable sexual assault for like 30 seconds until he's like, fine.
Yeah,
you're right.
Because it wasn't even like, oh, what's your deal or anything else. He was just like literally like, oh, okay.
Oh, I didn't know you meant it. I'm so sorry.
It just and I need to talk about that breakup because like that's what they talk about like on the boat. It's like they're playing a monster movie at the theater if you want to go see it. She's like sure. Yeah. Anyways, and they get there and stuff. He's like, and you could tell like you see people moving in the back. You're like, okay, is he bringing there for sex or whatever? All right. And so then he clears it out. And so you think, like, again, they're just going to zoom out. No, like, cars are crashing into each other, sure, like, right. While it's playing like that. I think it was like... But then, like, at one moment, two naked people just run out and are flopping about, bits and all in front of them, going, ooh! You're like, yeah, that's right, get out.
That is how you describe the movement.
Yeah.
Just flopping.
They're just like,
you can hear the bits.
Yeah, they're like flopping as they're just running around, and they're just like, okay, they're having sex in a car, but we have to see them naked.
Right?
How do we do this? Have them run out in front of the car,
headlights, and then turn around and run back in.
And it's not even. It's not even the fact that they were just like suck on this, cop. No, they were just like, oh, what do we do?
Yes, we've been caught.
Yeah, and then they zoom off, and then the binocular bit, and just tuning into the radio, and she's enamored. She's like, wow, this is amazing.
But I've never seen a movie before.
But yeah, like, it was just the quickest turnaround of, like, being upset, and then they're just both cool, like, oh, okay.
Right, but then the fucking, it's because somebody was screaming for help on the radio or whatever, and they're like, we gotta go save him.
Oh my gosh,
and they drove around trying to find it. They hit a pothole, and he has the most slapstick, humorous, falling face first into a pothole. Sploosh! Like, mud dripping off his face. That's my favorite part, because the whole next scene we described is he's caked in mud whenever he comes into the, No, that was earlier. Yeah, because he goes into the store, and he's full of mud, and they have the two customers in the store, and he's, like, trying to talk to Tracy, like, all sexual-like. Like, well, you never need somebody. But he's just, like, covered in dirt and doesn't seem to realize how disgusting he is.
Like, I'm not joking. Like, Looney Tunes is the best way I could describe it. Because even that part where he's like, whenever I start pushing, you slam on the gas pedal, and then he just falls perfectly in the face in the reveal.
Like he's doing a worm.
Like you're just missing the... sort of thing, because he's like, I got mud all over me.
To look right at the camera and be like, do a catchphrase or something, do a Jim face to the camera. I guess that's just being a cop.
But yeah, I just love it. Like, he's just laying it on still. It's like, if you want to have fun, well, you know where to find it. She's like, okay, good night.
He's like, "See ya."
Yeah, and
Bye-bye.
then she kisses Farmer Vincent before getting to bed there, but like there, I so badly want to talk about multiple things
There's
and
so much
everything.
to
I
talk
guess
about.
I guess one of the things to talk about is the fact that the secret of the meats is that it's human. They have human.
It was human all along. Whoa, they mixed it in with the pork.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do kind of like pretty early on. You're like gonna guess like, oh, these are cannibals. Like,
Yes.
even for the very first scene, you see Ida. She's like chopping up some shit and singing a song that's like, "You're eating at my heart, or whatever." Something. it's like not so, you know. And from that moment, I was like, yeah, cannibal beat, gotcha. Like,
Yes, like crazy cannibals and everything. The crazy thing is, I thought Luke was in on it too.
Me
Apparently,
too, yeah.
he had no idea.
right, because he's part of the family. I was like, this all makes sense. There's that whole scene where they come back after trying to find the girl that was screaming on the radio. That, of course, Farmer Vincent was harvesting, you know. And they kind of do a little lie performance where they're like, well, it's just some kids. And he's like, oh, those darn kids. Well, that's that then. So if you... And I was like, he wrapped it up so neatly. I was like, he must be in on this. They're lying so that Tracy and the customers here don't know. But it turns out he just didn't know. He's just like, oh, just people screaming? Okay, great. Don't have to do any paperwork for that, I guess.
Yeah, because... that it's just crazy because again they show the whole process because again like you know the boyfriend and everything, like you assume that okay they killed the boyfriend, turned him to meat, whatever,
Right.
because like she's like, oh, I need to see him, and he's like, well, I buried him this morning, he passed away. And you know that's where the bit comes in, is like, yeah, it's law.
Yeah. She's like, buried him this morning, passed away. She's like, you can't do that. And he's like, well, actually, in this county, it's okay.
And he phrases it literally like that. Oh.
She's just like, all right. And then I love how also whenever they go to visit the grave, they're talking about how there wasn't an open casket or a funeral or anything. And he's like, no, the way he was all mangled up, it curved in a number on him, you know, like you wouldn't want to see him like that. And meanwhile, she was on the back of that same motorcycle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She's not like, why didn't I get blown to a million bits? In the same car accident on the same motorcycle.
Oh my gosh, but yeah, and I do like the idea because again, like that's always like the classic cannibal move, is that they set up a trap to keep getting human victims, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
And so really, I would argue the main like meat we see processed in the film is Ivan and the Terribles.
True.
Because I also love the scene that, you know, they're just so delusional to not see bear traps on the road to snap the tires or whatever. And I love that they're just like smoking cigarettes and they're just like eating cigarettes backwards. Meanwhile, John Ratzenberger is playing the drums on a bag of chips, like an
they're
empty bag of
smoking
chips.
Some big weed is what they were smoking.
Okay, I couldn't tell.
They had-
It looked too neatly tubular instead of like the...
They had like some. I mean, they made sure they had the bong.
Oh,
prominent
yeah,
in
the
the
bong
first
was
shot.
there.
But then later on, whenever you see their van in the water, they have the bong float up. Which is like the funniest thing to me, because I'm not sure how they made the bong float up at all, because like it's just glass, it should fall. Like,
Yeah.
They must have like plugged it up and filled it full of air so
Yeah,
it
it's
would
like-
pop up. But
Yeah, something like that. But that is funny. I didn't even think about that it should have just stayed sunk to the bottom. Oh my
that was my
gosh.
first thing.
Well,
I saw it, I was like, "There's the bong," and then I was like, "How did that float?"
well, you
to
know,
the
it was
top?
filled with pot smoke, which makes you high.
Oh, shut
But yeah, and so you see basically the van tip over, and then they start leaking in gas into the van to knock them out and everything. And then you see the whole process, because before there was the bumbling government agent,
which was like, I don't know exactly why he was there at all, because I thought they were setting him up to be somebody that might uncover the truth or whatever. But I guess they were just making him the guy that lets you see what's inside the garden. But
yes, that's the only reason why he's there. But like, they love their like gags, like the mud pit gags, because when he's like looking around, just being, and he's like Poindexter, you know, like, oh, you know, doing that.
these
and
hog hooves are not quite up to code, you know.
yes, yeah, doing that. But then how he gets scared backwards from Farmer Vincent walking out with like blood, and I love he could be smiling, being like, yes, what is it, you know, with blood dripping on his cleaver and Abrin. and the agent goes like, "Wah!" and he falls backward into like a mud puddle.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Pig hooves aren't to code. I'm pretty sure they're infected." And then he comes back later that night to try to like find the secrets. And whenever he goes to the garden, he sees like there's these bags that move around, and it's revealed that the bodies, like including the boyfriend and everything that supposedly died at the beginning, is actually alive. But he goes like because they cut his vocal cords so that way they couldn't scream at all. And the agent is taken out with the lightest like from a shovel.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, and so that being said, they show the process of like what they do with the bodies, like basically breaking them out, having an auger go dig holes where they perfectly plop in place and stand up and everything, and then pack the dirt around there and everything else, and then they cut the vocal cords there and stitch it up, which I love how much like detail they had, because it's like, okay, their heads are sticking out of the ground because we need to feed them so that way they're healthy and everything, but they're going to scream for help and everything, so we cut the vocal cords so that way they can't talk at all, but we have to stitch it up neatly and put a bandage on it because we can't have it be infected at all. We got to keep the meat clean.
Right.
Like, just the fact they thought the meat packing process all the way through.
Right.
Which kind of concerns me, but, you know, kudos to them for having a good setup line and everything else like that. Yeah, and so then they also show, like, you know, we're feeding them, like, good food, because they have, like, a funnel tube that goes down to the mouth or whatever, and it's like, yeah, thank goodness we're feeding them good stuff there.
They literally just put slop in a funnel, and yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and so then whenever the... oh my gosh, they started gathering more bodies, because one of the help on the radio, I guess, for Luke or whatever, was the two gals who were like driving together, talking about like gaining a lot of money or whatever, and then them being stopped on the road, like with cows,
like cardboard cow,
cartoon cows, like
Roadrunner ass trap.
Yes, like Wile E. Coyote just painted cows in the middle of the street, and I just love it because like it takes them the longest time to be like, wait, they're fake.
Yeah,
you know, doing that.
I don't think these are real. It's just identical
gosh.
copy paste cow cutups.
Here's a gun.
You take the gun.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But like, I was laughing so hard at the cows because, if I'm being honest, like they weren't complete cartoon, but they were like 40% cartoon, 60% real. Like they had like big googly eyes almost. It was like the fact of how ridiculous the cows looked and everything, but it's still well done.
Yeah.
It just made it hysterical. It was just like, oh my gosh. So it just knows where to like play the line.
But that was like the only funny trap, which was like, unless I'm missing some, but like we see several traps, I guess, but they get more elaborate, because the first one is he just shoots the tire of the car, I guess.
I would say that one was probably the funniest. There is one that comes second with the couple. The couple was just a it was funny before then, though.
That was just because they were funny.
Yes, that's true.
The fucking kinkster couple that was there because they thought this was some sort of like sex retreat, and then they just tie him up and put him in the ground, I guess.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh my God in heaven. But I love that, you know, basically whenever the friend gets out of the car and then Farmer Vincent pops up, gasses her, and the other gal starts screaming in car and starts zooming off, and she's screaming for help for Luke, and he's like, we gotta go save her, you know, zooming off, and she's just screaming as Farmer Vincent is just like ramming her behind, and then all of a sudden I guess she just passes out, I guess, just like
just got too tired of driving and just passes out and drives off
right into a lake and everything. So it was just like wild. It's just like, oh my gosh. But yeah, that cow bit, absolute perfection. Just like, I have an idea. We'll paint these cows and put it in the middle of the road. That'll stop them.
And then and it's so funny because one of the cows is like has a black background and none of the other ones do. Of course, that's where Vincent's standing behind that cow and just like...
I didn't even see that!
Yeah, and he just like kind of reaches over and like gasses her whenever she turns around. Like that's that was the idea of the trap. Like whenever somebody comes to investigate why there's cows in the road, they'll get too close to this one cow and I'll gas them.
Anyways, let's talk about the sex couple, right?
Yeah, sure, why not?
So I love that whenever they're working, I think they actually just kill the band members, right? And everything.
So yeah, because they forgot to turn off the vacancy sign while they were doing some work.
Yes.
I think that's where they did the crazy ass. They show how they killed the
Oh
bodies.
yeah, let's talk about that before getting to the couple. But yeah, so how they harvest the bodies.
Right. Once they decide they're ready, I guess they put these fucking weird ass hypnosis light machines in front of them. And they start doing this backwards countdown that is supposed to be like a 10, 9, 8, 7, and 6, but it lasts for like 2 minutes.
It lasts so long.
Because every like 3 numbers they're like ready the spaceships for Mars travel or whatever, and they're like hypnosising these fucking zombie vegetated bodies in the ground, and they strap them into their space rockets or whatever, which is just putting a noose around their neck that's tied to the back of the tractor, and then they just like rev the tractor as fast as possible and like snap all 4 of their necks at once.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, that'll do it, and we treat our animals so humanely, aren't we cool? And then they drag him out of the ground with the tractor.
That was the part that threw me off, because like, okay, how can you snap their necks just by pulling the tractor, but then you pull again and it comes out super
instantly,
loose.
Yeah.
So
you gotta loosen them up first.
Yeah, that's why I was like, okay, like, I know I'm being a little bit nitpicky, but that threw me out. I'm like, okay, how's that working?
So much of it doesn't make sense. Yeah,
yes.
Because they pull up and the tractor does like a sick wheelie. Like, that's how hard they were cracking their necks, apparently. But
yeah.
It's also was just literally like a loose noose around like the back of their neck. It just like realistically that would just kind of push their face forward, but I mean like whatever.
Yeah, it's like
sure, that kills them.
Sure, I guess that's how they harvest it. If you kill them, they come out easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, it's moments like that that's super crazy. But I do love to feel like, because they always made it a point about clicking the no vacancy sign, so that way nobody comes to sniff around or whatever. But
Check
then
into the hotel.
they hear honking at the motel and they're like, what's that? It's like, you turn on the no vacancy light, right? And she's like, oops.
My bad.
And anyways, like, you get these people, and the guy at first I thought was going to be the crazy one, because the woman's like very mundane. He's like, yeah, you ever been to this place, Farmer Vincent, with this famous smoked meats? I've ate it since I was a kid. Yeah. You know, and she's like, neat, you know, he's like, yeah, this is the coolest place, yeah. You know, it's just like he's about to, like, do, like, a scat poem or whatever.
Yeah, he's got, like, a beret on and, like, a trench coat. He's got a bizarre get-up.
Oh, my gosh. But, yeah, I do love that Farmer Vincent comes on, he's like, oh, hey, don't mind me, I was just in my robe, like, what's up? And so, again, whenever they walk in or whatever, and they're just like, yeah, this is the place, right?
And he just always makes fucking horny jokes the whole time. They were like, because Vincent was like, sorry, I was going to bed early or something, and he's like, yeah, well, early to bed, early to rise. I'm trying to get a rise this morning. No time to... He just kept on making sex jokes.
Yeah, and so, like, once they realize, like, okay, they think this is like a sex retreat area or whatever, it's just like, oh yeah, we'll just do the hip stretches. Hip stretches, yeah, oh, yeah. Doing, like, just unhinged stuff. And so anyways, I'm like, wow, this guy's crazy. Then we cut to the hotel room with the woman, where it's like playing like actual classical music, which only amps up the Looney Tunes vibes and everything there, as she's running around with a whip, whipping everything, and just kicking her legs high. Like, it was just like a fever dream of like, what in God's name is going on with this film? Like, it was just so unhinged.
I felt like they were trying a little hard with that scene, because then the guy comes out and he's got like a bra on and like a weird mesh top and then like this see-through skirt and like he's just like, yeah, lube me up, baby.
Yeah,
Like,
I gotta shave. While they're listening to a televangelist on TV
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that's always playing
that's like
in
the only
rooms.
thing that plays. In this
But
place,
it was
right?
just like, yeah, lube me up, baby. Yeah, like doing that. It was just like, oh my lord, this is absolutely unreal. And then I love that whenever Ida and Vincent step into the room, they're just in their overalls and everything and just roping. It's like, oh, groovy. I love bondage. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's just so wacky and trying to go with it. He's like, oh, laughing gas. All right.
Give me some of that.
It just passes out immediately, and then whenever they're trying to give it to the woman's like, "Ah, that doesn't smell like laughing gas." He's like, yeah, sure, it's laughing gas. You inhale it and we laugh.
Yes, you guys take the gas and we'll do the laughing.
Yeah, oh my gosh. So it's just wild ass moments in the film like that. That's absolutely crazy. And again, just how they are over the top romanticizing it while also just being crazy. But man, oh man, this film, dude. And I love that the fact that Luke ends up he only figures out the secret because he's mad that Terry is like going out with like Farmer Vincent,
Right,
and
they're gonna get
everything.
married, so he's like, I gotta snoop around, I guess.
Yeah, like that's the only reason he seeks justice is because he wants Terry.
Right, and then he sees, oh wait, there's like 200 cars in this lake, I guess, and also there was a shotgun shell in the bike that you crashed on, so he figures out that like, I think they're trying to kill you for some reason, but he still doesn't know about the meats.
Oh my gosh, but yeah, so I love that's his whole reason, and oh my god, I just remembered the champagne scene.
Oh god,
Oh,
yeah.
that, and she was like still wrapped up in a towel from like the bath earlier and everything else.
But they go to celebrate the marriage had gonna happen, I guess, by doing some champagne. And yeah, God, that was the stupidest poisoning scene I've ever seen.
It was so bad. It just because like she she comes in with a tray of champagne glasses, party hats or whatever, and they're like, yeah, I can't wait to get married to you. And then like they take like a sip of the champagne and it's like, oh yeah, refill it. And then she moves a party hat where there's like a little like vial or whatever, and then she fills it with like, it's not even champagne colored. It's like green, like apple green juice. And again, Terry's just like, oh, okay.
Right.
And drinks it. And there's no way she's inebriated from one glass of champagne like that.
No, but when you're drinking green poison liquid that you don't look at, you just drink, then yeah, I guess it makes you pass out instantly. She like takes a sip and it's like,
He's
just
like,
falls
all right, she's out. Let's go harvest the bodies. And so they bring the bodies and they do show like the preparation, kind of like, okay, we got to clean the bodies and everything. And they check the hickory smoke room and everything. He's like, yep, this is about done or whatever. But in the midst of this going on with her passed out and then Luke finding the stuff, the boyfriend from the beginning of the film somehow breaks out of the ground.
Yeah, he just wiggles enough that he gets out, I guess.
I guess because like there were still holes in the ground, but maybe because it loosened the ground. It's moments like that where I'm like, they were just like, we need this to happen, so let's just write it in.
Right.
This just happened.
It just happens.
And so then he frees everybody that's been captured, and it's like everybody we see in the film. And again, you were mentioning the zombie take because it is interesting because they can't talk. The only way they can talk is going
Yeah, and they're like weakened from being planted in the ground for however many weeks or
yeah, so they're like stumbling around in a horde,
and they're going, but they're smart because they're still people, you know.
So that was it was funny because you're like, they have an interesting take on zombies. I'm like, yeah, you're right.
Because I was like, because I was wondering, because they sounded like zombies the whole time, and they're on the ground, but I didn't think they were actually going to do like a zombie scene, which is great because they form like a horde and all like attack Ida and kill her. I guess kill her. They bury her in the ground. Face first, you find out.
Oh my gosh, that. I gotta come back to that. No, fuck it. I'm gonna talk about it. So, anyways, like, we're just gonna be all over the fucking place with this film.
This film's all over the place.
Yes,
so
yes.
it's okay.
Anyway, so like they get the comeuppance on Ida, which I love. Like at first I thought like this is the stupidest death, like because basically what happens is like Luke comes up to wake up Terry. He's like, Terry, you gotta wake up. Farmer Vincent isn't who you think he is. He's crazy. And she's like, what are you talking about? You know, and she's like, I found like 200 cars in the lake. He's killing people. And she's like, okay. And it just puts up the ring or whatever. And then, you know, Ida, who happened to be in the house because she got hungry and is making like an ungodly dessert, like piling a whole bunch of like Ready Whip or whatever.
Like a whole
and
can
then
on top.
like spraying, I hope to be ketchup and not like strawberry syrup on a chicken wing. Or,
Yeah, using like a hand pump, which I've never seen before. Like a soap pump style, but for ketchup on your wing. Like, pretty clever.
But yeah, she like bodies the sheriff easily, like
Yeah.
unbelievably easy, or everything
Takes
else.
his gun.
And then takes the gun, and she's like, "Oh, you know too much. You're coming with me." And it gives it to Farmer Vincent, and then she's like, "Okay, I need to go check the parameters." So she like locks the slaughterhouse door or whatever. But then like the zombie group pops up and they hit her, and she's able to fight them off for a while there. Like she definitely has some strength to her there, but then she just gets kind of overpowered zombie wise, and it's just that, and you don't see anything like bloody or gory, or it's just like, okay, I guess that's how she's defeated. But it isn't until later that I guess like whenever Luke and Terry get out of the slaughterhouse, don't worry, we're most certainly going to be talking about the slaughterhouse. But like the reveal of like, oh, there's a bag here in the garden, and reveal it, and it's like Ida's legs upside like down, sticking straight up, and so then they touch it and it just wiggles like
Starts kicking around, yeah.
and then it just drops dead or whatever, and then they're like looking, and she moves it again, and the second movement, because they don't even like react to it, just makes it so much more funny. It's just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, the fact that they have the sound effect with it both times, but then the second time the sound effect is like...
Yeah, like doing that, I was just like, oh my gosh, this film
like
is so
They
unhinged.
tried to do the gag twice. Like, ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. It's like, alright, movie.
Oh my gosh, but yeah, so... Man, the slaughterhouse scene. Basically that's like, you know, supposed to be the grand reveal to Terry, like, oh my god, they're eating people, you know.
Yeah, but yeah, her,
and,
like, the deputy and her, like, break in or whatever, and then, what? Because I'm trying to remember how it turns out that she gets unconscious, but, like, when does the deputy come? No, he wakes up in the middle, so she just finds herself to the slaughterhouse, and then is like, what is this?
No, Ida brought her to the slaughterhouse there.
Oh, but then gets
and then she, whenever Ida left, she locked the door or whatever,
right,
because
with
they
the
were talking,
padlock.
and he's like, I'm doing the world a favor. There's not enough food and too many people. You know, and it's just sort of like oh, this villain has motivation. He's just not doing it because he's evil. He's doing it for good reasons.
Right.
Or whatever.
And they did set up earlier in the movie with that ridiculous picnic that he comes from a family where, you know, we didn't have a lot to eat, and you got to eat anything, you know, and we'd smoke anything that moved or whatever. And then they talk about smoking the family dog and eating it.
I know.
And they're all like, it was great, and you know, and I love that Terry is just like, you guys ate it, and they're like, yeah, and they're like, that's icky. Anyways, catch me in 30 minutes. I want to marry this guy. But...
Yeah, and Luca was even like, yeah, you know, it's a dog. It's,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, who doesn't
you
eat
know,
a dog before?
meat's meat and I gotta eat.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I do have to talk about one thing before we get to the slaughterhouse finale and everything.
Sure.
Right at the beginning, whenever they have like the family staying there, and like the girls check out the slaughterhouse and they run away like screaming because obviously they got scared by Ida wearing the pig head or whatever. But like, first off, he's putting like Farmer Vincent's famous smoked meats sticker tag crookedly on the bumper, mind you, so that was the real scary part. But then like the girls are crying, he's like, oh, what's the matter with the girls? It's like, I don't know, they start crying. He's like, here, let me help. He screams at their face, and then they're like, Oh, you got our kids.
You got them.
Just so.
Anyway, kids.
Yeah, I had to mention that. That was, and it's just the movie is riddled with moments like that of like, oh my gosh, this is.
You could tell they were going for like the most caricature ass characters for these side characters too, because yeah, it's the laughing sensible chuckle dad and mom, and then the kids are like twins wearing the same dress and carrying around balloons when they're in the slaughterhouse. But I did love that you get to see the balloons in there later whenever they go back to the slaughterhouse. They kept the balloons.
Oh my god, yeah. Oh man. So slaughterhouse. So basically, you know, he has like this moment where he tries to like reason with her, and then she tries to leave or whatever, and then he's like, well, I guess I hope you turned out different, Terry, and then gasses her and then ties her to like the conveyor belt and everything. And then it's at that moment that her boyfriend at the beginning of the film is like finding the slaughterhouse and is able to get to the rooftop, see through there, see that she's there. He drops down and then ends up like fighting.
Drop down, he breaks through the glass window.
It just
at the
lands
top.
like a Looney Tunes character, just
and then gets up and is ready to fight.
Yeah, but it was just also like an awful fight. They're just flinging stuff at each other and they're just pushing each other, shoving and everything. Mm-hmm. And then ultimately the boyfriend's defeated because we have to make sure that Terry ends up with Luke at the end of the film.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. And they just push him into, like, he's just defeated because they just, like, push him into the smoke room and close the doors. And, like, all right.
And it's just like, all right, I guess that's it. He's dead.
Smoked.
Yeah, smoked him. You know, doing that. Which is funny because, like, she'll have no idea that happened at all whatsoever because she's just thought like, oh, he's dead or whatever.
That is the tragedy, is that her boyfriend was alive the whole time and fought to rescue her, and she has not asked about him since the day he died. She has not wondered one bit.
I am so curious if they purposely tried to make that tragic, like, oh, this is going to be tragic or whatever. But because with the vibe of this film, it's so hard for them. But at the same point, if they were truly just, you know, galaxy braining it, just like, yes, we're gonna have the perfect tragedy in this what the fuck kind of film going on, doing that. But then I love that Luke wakes up, he's like, my gun's gone, I guess I'll take the shotgun, and off the wall back there, and so he runs in and blasts the lock off the door, and he walks in, and you don't see anybody anywhere, but then all of a sudden, from the smoke room coming in, wielding a chainsaw and a pig mask is Farmer Vincent.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I saw on this film a lot. Like, there was this steelbook where it showed the art specifically of someone in coveralls with the pig mask. But because Ida did it at first, I was like, oh, that's going to be her or whatever. And that's going to be a big reveal. I did not expect in a quadrillion years it would be Farmer Vincent because it's like, yeah, he's normal. Like insane, but for the most part, he's fairly mundane, just evil.
He's presented as like a normal farmer that just has a twisted idea of like what livestock is. He's like, he just thinks humans can be livestock.
Yeah, but all of a sudden he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs because I guess.
Right.
And so then he's just like laughing while he has it going on. I don't remember what happened to the gun, if he like lost it whatever.
Yeah. Like, so he like tries to shoot, like he goes to shoot or whatever, but then like swings it at the chainsaw and like it gets thrown on the floor or something, you know? He like blocks a chainsaw thing with it instead of just shooting him in the head or something.
I know.
And then it's and then we can't use the shotgun anymore. But.
Yeah, and then it's like he looks over, sees another chainsaw, he's like, okay, we're doing this. So they end up chainsaw dueling, which ended up being a better chainsaw duel than in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
True.
Because they like stood there just kind of batting it back and forth.
This was actually a great chainsaw duel.
Yeah, it was. And there's like actual moments where he's like getting cut through like the bulletproof vest there and everything else.
The editing that they had of like him getting nicked by the chainsaw was kind of ridiculous because it would just be like they'd be fighting and then it would just cut to like still shot of a shirt.
Like just someone standing still
getting ripped slightly and then it would go back to the chainsaw fight.
It was just so weirdly edited there. Just like, okay, we had to have this dummy hold still,
Right.
Doing that. It just totally felt unnatural. But he would the actor would act like he's stuck, like, oh, my jacket's stuck on this wall.
Right. I gotta get out of it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And it's just crazy. And then they just start hitting everything.
Yeah.
Including the power source or whatever, which turns the conveyor belt on in the saw.
Towards the slicer, yeah. And so, yeah, of course, Terry's just slowly getting, like, old cartoon style into the log flume,
Yes! Like, Dudley Do-Right or whatever.
Yeah.
Just
Like, help,
Oh my god.
She wriggles as the train's about to hit her
But
ass.
the thing that makes me crazy is, why all of a sudden did they decide to do the pig mask for that fight? And the only thing I could think of is that Jack Calhoun, I think that's the actor's name, Rory Calhoun. Yes, Rory Calhoun could not do the choreography for the fight, so they had to bring in a stunt person, and they're like, let's just throw a pig mask on, because they give no basis, because at the very least, the beginning of the film, whenever Ida's wearing it, it looks like the pig's decapitated, just like sitting there, but then, oops, no, it's a mask. So at least that kind of makes sense, but like they don't give a reason for wearing like the pig mask, and he's just like
Nothing beyond, I guess this would be creepy or whatever, but
doing something like that, I guess, or whatever, but it's just very bizarre and everything. So that's why I was just kind of like, man, what is going on with this film here? Yeah, and so the fight goes on, and they really made sure to they did not want to half-ass the chainsaw fight. They wanted to commit a lot of time to it, but then they end up having quite a gruesome scene with him being like cut on the side there and everything.
He like swings and misses into the door or something, and he's like, haha, but then somehow gets him in the side, and he's like, oh, you got me. And he just kind of bleeds there. And then they hear Terry yell, and this is one of my favorite parts of the fight, is when he hears Terry yell, and he like breaks through the smoke room doors by like what do you call, like zip lining in down the hook?
Yes, like on the hook.
And he like flies in like a superhero. He saves her from the saw machine.
It was so over the top because there was no reason for him to do that besides.
No, I don't even think like, if you look at the choreography that I didn't even realize they were there. Like I don't see how they got into the smoke room. I think they just did that to have a funny entrance.
Yeah, it's super wild, dude. Like absolutely unhinged with that and everything. So yeah, needless to say, I was just like, all right. Okay, you have my attention. Who the hell am I kidding? You've always had my attention.
Yeah, the whole movie.
Motel Hell.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then rescues her, and again, that's whenever they like leave or whatever, and they're just kind of like talking, chilling, and I guess the other people just got away. They probably like ran off. You don't know what happens to them.
See them. Yeah.
They find Ida planted in the garden, but then it's like walking away, and it's just like, well, I wonder what's going to happen to the motel and everything. She's like, at this point, I'd rather it burn. Or whatever. He's like, what? You want to see it burn? She's like, this hotel is terrible or whatever. And then it like zooms in to like
the sign that
the
says,
neon,
which is supposed to say Motel Hello the whole time, but of course the O has been burnt out, so it just says Motel Hell.
But it was just funny because like it shows the O like flickering in and out, and then it just explodes or whatever twice, and it's just like, all right. And then you watch the film and you see like Motel Hell in the background, the credits roll and everything, and then it just explodes at the end.
Yeah, again, after all the credits are all just again.
Yeah, and I think that's the best way to end the film, in all honesty.
That's how you should end any movie. If you don't know how, it's just explosions. And
that'll always work out 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
60% of the time it works 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was
that. I will say the one thing I want to talk about before we wrap this up.
Yeah.
Is we didn't talk about Farmer Vincent's final line. Which
Oh
is,
my gosh, thank you. I totally would have been
totally-
miffed if I forgot,
I
because
definitely dropped a couple points off of this movie.
this
That was not. That was like a line that was so bad that it wasn't even funny for me. But I don't. Or
I
he's like-
don't-
he's like, my life's work. It was a lie or whatever. As he's dying, and he's like, I actually used preservatives.
did it really make you mad?
I was just like, that's a stupid line.
But does it fit in the? Well, actually, I don't feel like it does. Like
That
it's,
was
it's
like-
a stupid line, but it's a different kind of stupid that
That
doesn't
was
fit
just
in.
like goofy, and like I was getting goofy from so many other characters besides Vincent, and then for him to just like end it on an uncharacteristically goofy line was like, that's stupid. But
Well,
whatever.
it was just weird too, because he just I don't think they knew what to do with the character at the end.
No.
Like, they forgot who Vincent was, like,
Right.
as soon as they put on the pig mask. Because whenever you take it off, he has, like, this monologue, soliloquy, or whatever, and he's just like, I've been a hypocrite.
Right.
You know, saying I don't use chemicals or additives or anything. And then he's just like, I used preservatives. And that was, like, the last lines, and he closed his eyes.
Right.
I totally forgot about that. I would have been miffed forgetting about it, but I can see why that would just make you mad. You're like, this is just
It's just
dumb.
dumb. Like, I get they were trying to derive comedy from the fact that he was supposed to have a tearful confession, but then he says the preservatives thing. But I just didn't. It's just like, whatever, man. It's just like a B joke. It's like, whatever. It was a dumb setup for a dumb joke. IMO. But that's just me.
But it's okay. The explosion made up for
The
it.
explosion's funny. It's always funny. It's like a fart joke. If they just made a big fart sound at the end, I would be like, gold. You got it. If they just exploded the sign with like, I'd be like, just echoing fart noise. Sure, like that works every time. You can't go wrong.
I just want to see it end up that now. I'm like, I am laughing so hard. Just.
You gotta take the ending and then take that echo fart meme sound from like, you know, like the Megamind clip, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Farts and explosions. That's all you need, ladies and gentlemen, to make one hell of a film.
Rumors of my death were greatly exaggerated. Farts, you know. That was, anyway. It's a great movie too. Megamind, man. If we had a not horror movie podcast, you should watch Megamind. That's a great movie.
Welcome back to episode 75 of Megamind Podcast.
Where we watch Megamind again.
How was it the 75th time?
You know, I really liked it. Didn't see that ending coming.
Oh my god.
Anyway,
Well, anywho, so basically, we're going to talk about the next film we're going to be watching on the podcast, which
what are we cooking
is,
up next?
well, you know, I'm sure it'll be the hardest thing to imagine, but it's a sequel.
Okay,
It's a slasher sequel.
gotcha.
But to change things up in spirit of Greg Mortis, after recommending this film, it's his probably his favorite franchise, I would guess, at the very least.
Sure.
And it is very fitting for
Yeah,
October.
right. Is this a Halloween sequel?
Yes,
Halloween.
it is.
What are we on? 3, 4?
We are on 4.
Yeah, 4.
Yes. Yeah. I'm very curious on how your thoughts are going to be, because usually, for folks that don't know, if a franchise ends up being like, Aaron's like, I'm done, it's just like, say no more. I'm not going to subject you to this. He would be a trooper and go through with anything.
I would watch whatever.
Yes.
We haven't watched it before.
But at the same point, we're co-hosts. We try to be respectful of where we're going on our little journey here. So, thank you all so much for listening to this episode, and we'll see y'all again next time when we're popping the scary with Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers.
He's back.
Yes, he's back.
Back again.
You don't seem... You lost all enthusiasm hearing he's back. You're like, fuck! Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube, Castbox, or iTunes platforms to stay up to date when new episodes drop. To see what Aaron and I are up to, check out our respective Twitter accounts. For me, it is at ColeKirkVA, and for Aaron, it is at AnimalGameDev. Thank you all so much for listening to our podcast. We'll speak to you all again next time when we're poppin' the scary.